I didn't really grow up with a father figure that I could really look up to. And unfortunately, I had to learn how to do like vehicle maintenance on my own, and other aspects of manhood. And that, although I kind of grew up in I didn't have many challenges. That saying about hard times make strong men. Strong men make easy times, and so forth. I had easy times, and I made hard times. Mostly for myself.
Welcome to the BizDad podcast. I am very excited and honored to chat with Aaron Hale today, and a father, entrepreneur, another military veteran. So I'm looking forward to digging into his story a bit and learning a little bit more about Aaron, about who you are and your family. So if you can you introduce yourself, tell us about your family, and then tell us about your business?
Thanks for having me on, Adam, and thank you for your service as well. I am a former Army, actually former Navy cook turned Army EOD, Army's bomb squad, military bomb squad. And now, after my injury, I'm an entrepreneur. I've got a couple businesses with my wife, Michaela. She's been with me since 2015. We've got three awesome boys. One, Cameron, is 13 years old and from a previous marriage. And we've got identical twin toddlers who are 5 years old, Owen and Wyatt, who are identical twins, because I shouldn't be the only one who's confused. But they're incredible kids. It's so much fun and an amazing challenge to be their dad. All of them totally unique in incredible ways. And it's funny how I know they're identical twins, but they're nothing alike to me. Being totally blind and almost totally deaf. I've gotten to know my boys as they grow up in very, very unique ways. So it's very funny when anybody says that they can't tell them apart, because they couldn't be more different.
Yeah, my sister has twins. They're not identical, but they are so different. Like one's a boy and one's a girl, so obviously very, very different there. But just growing up in the same household with the same parents, usually when I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, well, my oldest is so different than my youngest. I don't understand. They're in the same house." And I'm like, "Well, no, they're not, right? Like the youngest did not grow up in the same house as the oldest because there was no older sibling for the oldest, right? So that's there's a very different dynamic. But when you have twins, they do grow up literally in the same house, right next to each other. But it just really goes to show the nurture side, or the nature side versus the nurture side, because both sides have a very big play in how we grow up. So I want to rewind your story a bit and learn a little bit about what it was like for Aaron growing up. Tell me about your father, kind of what it was like growing up with your parents, and then maybe even your dad's dad, if you know a little bit about the history there.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I didn't really grow up around my dad. My folks were divorced when I was 8. And, I grew up in Akron, Ohio. It was a great, almost like a Norman Rockwell type of living in the suburbs of outside Akron. And I loved it. When we were, I think I was in second grade, my dad moved the whole family out to California. And we spent about a year there before my mom had enough and took the three of us back to Ohio to start another life without my dad. And he stayed in California. So I did spend the summers, with my brother and sister in California, but my dad wasn't really the father figure. He was a very driven entrepreneur himself. He's built a couple businesses. I kind of picture him, if you think of dog personalities, more like a German Shepherd, work, play, drive, and not your emotionally connected. But his dad, Herman, was it was a World War II, Korea veteran and a paratrooper. Kind of turned, who was the white haired guy in Mad Men?
Okay.
That was my granddad. He was half in the bag by noon and on the golf course. But all of the guys, my dad, my grandfather, very affable men, very fun to be around, not terrific dads. So my dad now is making up for it as granddad, because he gets to swoop in, be the grandpa, the hero, totally ruin all the good work I've been doing, and head back to the dad, the grandpa cave. But it's great. Yeah, I'm glad we have that relationship. So I've had a stepfather, for a few years, and we didn't get along very well. So I didn't really grow up with a father figure that I could really look up to. And unfortunately, I had to learn how to do vehicle maintenance on my own, and other aspects of manhood, and that. Although I kind of grew up in, I didn't have many challenges. That saying about, hard times make strong men, strong men make easy times, and so forth. I had easy times, and I made hard times, mostly for myself. I really came to fruition when I joined, I went to college. So I was getting by mostly, on natural ability, just enough talent and not, enough smarts to get B's and C's in high school, and enough athletic ability to, start on the team, but not be the star. And I got to college, and everybody who knew how to work hard quickly passed me by, and I found I was really struggling, and I wasn't very happy with myself. Pretty depressed. I gained a ton of weight. I was living on beer and pizza and all that. So that's when I joined the military.
So you mentioned you had a stepdad that you didn't really get along with. When did your mom remarry to your stepdad?
Just a couple of years later. I think before my dad and my mom left Ohio, she was working at my future stepdad's company. So I think they knew each other beforehand. So when she came back to Ohio, she found work with him again. They struck up a relationship. So it wasn't too much, too long after.
What was it like growing up with your stepdad? I know you said you didn't get along well, but what was that relationship like, and what did you kind of glean from that as you were growing up?
This was about 9-10 years old for me. My brother and sister are each, we're all 3 years separated, apart by birth. And I think I had a chip on my shoulder. My dad was my hero back then. I didn't really understand why my folks had split. I would later, and it makes perfect sense. My dad had a temper, and he wasn't faithful. I didn't see a whole lot of that, or don't remember a whole lot of it. But my sister, she didn't really care. My brother was too young to know anything So for the other two, they took to my stepdad just fine. He and I just we just
Okay.
didn't get along. So there was friction there. However, he was the guy who taught me how to swing an axe, and he was the guy who kicked me out of bed on a weekend so I could go rake leaves in the yard. And he did. He and my mom did provide, a good life for me. So I got to give him credit for that. He was a schmuck in so many ways, and turned out to be a terrible, terrible guy as well. He and my mom both owned the businesses that later on that he created, and he actually was later arrested for tax evasion and embezzling from his own company and all that kind of stuff. So he ruined my mom's credit, left her without, and we had this wonderful home in the suburbs. It was like 20 acres, and he just squandered all of it. And left my mom pretty much without anything. So it was difficult, but this was only after I'd moved out and gone on.
Yeah, that would be, I would imagine, extremely hard to deal with. Were you already in the military by that point when that happened too?
Yes, I was, and it felt pretty empty to do anything for my mom, because I was stationed in Italy, and some of these things were coming out. She was telling me about it, and my mom is incredible. She's like the stoic in the family, stiff upper lip and eternal optimist, and we'll get through this. And that would definitely be one of the huge examples for me when I was injured later. She went through a very difficult time with both her husbands, and she came out of it, and still an incredible mom and very supportive, always everything for her kids. So,
wow, what a lack of a boy, like a chance of having a father figure in your life at that point. You have a dad who's on the other side of the country. You have a stepdad who is probably at that time still doing shady things in his business, but just unknown yet. But man, what did you think afterwards? Because obviously you said that you didn't really get along with your stepdad, but now after all of that happens, were you able to kind of look back and have conversations and see anything from the past that kind of alerted you, or what kind of self-analysis did you do of that situation after it happened?
I've certainly gone back and my memories and processed what I've thought about them. I register all of it as lessons learned. Here's what to do. Here's what not to do. Here's the good points and then the negative points of all the situations. There's nothing I can do to change the past. So the best I can do is learn from them and decide what to do in the next time that situation comes up for me. Maybe when the table, the roles have switched into me being the father. And with three sons, all with different personality types and all with different challenges. Yeah, that's the exciting part of being a dad. It's just chaos, and you got to be on your toes, especially when you're a blind deaf guy. So I take these lessons learned, and I'm like, how should I approach this? Is it the warrior hat I need to put on? Is it the analytical hat? Do I need to step back and let him figure it out for himself and just be the encourager, right? The kind of limited example I have from my dad and my stepdad. frankly, most of my heroes, my role models, were Magnum PI, Hannibal, the A-Team, MacGyver, Tim Allen on Home Improvement. And truth is, I mean, they were great examples, and I'm not ashamed to say that I look back to those 80s and 90s TV shows, and like, that's how you should do it. It's you got to consider the situation and step back before we all have this desire to react first, but I've learned later on that it takes a moment. It's okay to just pause, consider the ramifications, like the second order results of your actions, and that's what I try to do in any given situation. I'm not successful in that.
Yeah, I try to tell my boys all the time there is a difference between reacting and responding. Because when you respond, you're able to actually assess what's happening, think through it, and then react. Then show what you need to do in that situation. Where a reaction is too often emotional, and especially when I'm doing that with my kids. If I react to my kids, I tend to be a little bit more sharp and harsh, and my military side comes out a bit more than I would like it to. But when I'm able to respond, they receive it so much better. So you mentioned, I want to go through your story in the military. As you mentioned a couple times how you mentioned you register everything as a what to learn from it, right? So you had obviously a traumatic experience in the military side of the house. Can you walk me through what that was like, what your life was like pre, and then what happened, and then we'll go into a little bit after?
I joined the Navy right out of college, and I didn't do very well in college. So I enlisted. I wanted to get the GI Bill in 4 years, get out, and try again. Get that tuition money that I pissed away the first time. And I accidentally fell in love with service. I got that work ethic and the, learned how to enjoy a hard day's work. And all of that's internal stuff, the core values. But I accidentally got the external type, pride in service. Pride in being a part of something greater than yourself, teamwork and dedication to duty, and I absolutely loved being a sailor, being out at sea, and I was stationed in Italy for 4 years. And part of that, I was cooking for a 3-star admiral, the commander of the 6th Fleet. I tell you what, definitely not a hardship duty. But I joined it in 99 and went to Italy, and then found myself in 2 wars. And we were out at sea, and I'm on board the flagship, and we're doing our figure 8s and boxes and all that kind of stuff in the middle of the Mediterranean. And I was, everybody's job is important, right? Everybody fits into the big military machine. But I was watching these wars unfold on CNN and Fox. And I just realized that I have talents and abilities that could be put to better use. And I just wasn't feeling satisfied. I love cooking. I loved creating, I love being a culinary artist and all of that. I loved being stationed in Italy. And that was all the benefits that come with that. And like I said, I love being a sailor. But I wanted to do something more for the mission. So I volunteered to deploy to Afghanistan. Of course, still as a Navy cook, I ran an Army chow hall on a FOB, forward operating base, way out in the desert of Afghanistan, so far out there that even the Taliban were like, "You can have it." Meh. Yeah, so it was a pretty boring year out there. But I went from cooking for the admiral and his top brass to cooking for hundreds of NATO troops, including a couple of platoons of Italian special forces, which was pretty cool. I got to practice the lingo I learned in Europe, and got to trade some MREs for espresso and prosciutto and stuff. But that's when I met some explosive ordnance disposal technicians, a bomb squad of the military. And I met these guys. I learned all about the technical aspect of the job. It's a thinker's job. And the tight-knit brotherhood that is like a fraternity within the military. And the fact that they're lifesavers, they're first responders on the battlefield. So everything about it just clicked. That's exactly what I need to be. And I put in my request to go Navy EOD, and the Navy kicked it back and said, "We're not taking cooks." We appreciate your cooking far more. But I wasn't going to take no for an answer. So when I got back from Afghanistan, my deployment, my contract was coming up, and I'd have to decide whether to re-enlist or walk. And I walked. I went over to the Army recruiter, and they welcomed me right in. I got 2 wars and plenty of IEDs and unexploded ordnance to take care of. They said, "Yeah, come on. Here's a uniform. Go get trained up." I kept my rank and went from petty officer to sergeant, and I became an EOD technician. I deployed once to Iraq as a team member. And then in 2011, I deployed for my second time to Afghanistan. This time I will be the team leader, the guy that actually gets in the bomb suit and makes that long, lonely walk. 8 months into that 12-month rotation, there was an IED, a secondary device. I was working on one, and there was another one nearby that hadn't yet been detected.
Wow. And
that's what got me. It hit me in the head, punted me into the air. They put the lights out, rung my bell pretty good. And, for 48 hours later, I was at Walter Reed, and they tell me that I'd never be able to see again. It also cracked my skull in a couple places, and I was leaking spinal fluid right out my nose. I lost a little bit of my hearing, but some of it was still there. And I'd have to come to grips with the fact that my life had changed drastically. And I tell you what, it was a tough time inside my head, because I was just growing up. I matured late, and I was appreciating the challenge and the service and all that stuff. I just welcomed my firstborn into the world, and in fact, only days prior to the explosion, I got to go back on 2 weeks of R&R from the battlefield, and I timed it so I'd be there for his first birthday. So I got to see the whole family for Thanksgiving. I got to see my son turn 1. And, it's a great last page in the photo album of my head. But there I was right back there in Walter Reed. And I'm just, asking all those questions, like, why me? What if? And all those questions, and nobody has any answers. It's like a dead end. And thank goodness for my mom and her outlook on life. In fact, besides the challenge of her husband's, my younger brother, 6 years younger than me, had also gone through a traumatic injury. He worked roadside construction and got hit by another contractor. Outside the barrels, it says 45 miles per hour, double fines or whatever. Inside the barrels, there's just no law. There's no speed limit or anything. So this guy T-boned my brother's work truck, threw him from the truck, broke his neck, and he spent months in a coma. My mom moved into that hospital for like 6 months, nursing, bringing my brother back to life. He still, to this day, has permanent brain damage, Parkinson's, like tremors going down one side of his body. He's got a pacemaker, one of those brain stimulators that does counter shocks to counteract those misfires. So my mom comes into the hospital at Walter Reed, and the first thing I could think of was, I am so sorry I did this to your other son. And my mom, in her truest form, says, "Oh, honey, not my first rodeo."
Yeah, that is got to be a powerful thing to have at your side, is that level of emotional support with your mom there. And I know that you mentioned that she was a big part of your ability to get through, obviously the traumatic experience that you had. So what level of let's say before mom arriving and after mom arriving, how did your mentality shift, and how quickly was it from your mom arriving that you got that extra boost to help you with your mindset?
15 party or something, and he decided that he was going to allow himself to cry or just all of us feel that mood, and he was going to he didn't need 5 years or more. Once he made a decision, it was like something in your brain, and you need it before and so on. I'm definitely an advocate for not ignoring your emotions. You got to feel drugs, and you got to process it. You can't do it. You can't fix it like a smoke alarm. Goes off, and then trying to tell you so. It could tell you that there's a full-on fire or a raging inferno. Get the hell out of the house. It could also tell you, look at those 3 boys that it's a little crispy, and that's right. You can't just fix it on the alarm. Listen to the things. Recognize what's better, and then, like we talked about, and this being the ability to decide, not react, but engage and act. So I was there at the hospital, focused on myself, listening to all the inner talk in my head. My mom comes in, she starts running around. I had this 5 warriors up in the halls. They're all going, I thought about them. My brothers and sisters and they're all going through their own personal battles, and they're not quick. It's just think, like, who gave me a knowledge of pain? Right? What excuse do I have to quit? Especially when none of them quit. So I let myself feel the feelings. But I was going to get to work. I was going to be the best blind person I could. I was previously married, and I was married at the time I was injured. So, it's a little time to read, but they are trauma, and they're real good with prosthetics, amputations, that kind of stuff. Didn't have a whole lot for me since I just, I guess what I just might didn't have anything for blindness there. So I went to reading after my recovery, and they passed me up. I went to the VA hospital in Georgia, where they have the VA's blind rehabilitation center. It's basically school for the blind. And I spent about 5-6 months there just learning how to use accessible technology, living feels like plugging by myself.
Man, I'm getting a little bit of weird audio. I can't tell if it's my internet or what it is. I'm gonna play with some. I'm getting some weird feedback. I can't. I missed some of what you were saying, but I got a pretty good gist of it.
It was like the graduation part was actually leaving the front doors and walking down the road to the Fisher House. And so the figurative and literal finish line was my family. And, of course, I'm the son. And that was, like I said, about half a year. And then they asked me if I wanted to, where I would retire. And I said, I don't. To learn how to use my accessible phone and computers. I was on the internet researching blind plus everything, blind plus outdoors, blind plus fitness. And I also learned that there were a handful of active duty service members who are fully blind, including Scott Ivan Castro, who's an Army Ranger, blind,
Mhm.
and working as the Special Operations Recruiting Branch at Fort Bragg. I've been talked to the guy, and he was the one who really then beat midpoint every year to run the Air Force Marathon, the Army and the Marine Corps Marathon, and that's me patriotic. I think I'll do that too. But I told the big Green Army that if you guys can stay active duty, of course, I couldn't do the job anymore. They don't even write it when EOD guys are covered on. But I could instruct. So I asked them to say, I go in Air Force Base, where the EOD school is. And that's what I did for about a year and a half. I was instructor. Also, though, during that time, I learned that I couldn't deploy again to avoid dealing with stress at home, difficulty with response. And it was something that just couldn't be resolved. And I got a divorce. As terrifying as it would be to be blind and on my own, I was going to be better than what's happening there at home. Well, everything else in aspect of my life was getting better. At that time, I was speaking, I was telling a story, I was encouraging others to take charge of their lives, no matter the difficulties. I was running marathons and kayaking, big water. Like I said, I was looking at these guys, like George Mayer, who was the first blind person to kayak, the first blind person to climb Mount Everest. And I looked him up and I went mountain climbing with him. Bonnie Bed, more than any guy. The first blind person hiked the entire Grand Canyon, 226 miles through, the Grand Canyon on Colorado River. I'm going to take it. And then, the most difficult part of my life was my relationship with my wife. So, we got divorced, so a difficult to get on, but, Cameron is now, like I said, 13 and living with me and my wife today, not Mikhail. Well, it's definitely October line, right? And I wanted them to experience balance. I want to protect them from it. I know as a protector, parent, we want to shelter our kids from pain. But I also know that pain is chock full of information you're willing to listen and learn. So as I wanted bold pain out to the kids, but I want to allow them those little wins and those little learning lessons. So I got to allow them to experiment. I allow them to make mistakes. I got to allow them the opportunity to go out there and skin their knee so that it feels like just skin their knee. And, of course, when I try to keep myself from doing my son dumb nails, it says the other day I was playing basketball with my friend, and he came down on my foot pretty hard. It really hurts, and I really had to hold myself back and saying, on a scale of 1 to getting blown up.
Awesome. And you said you got married in 2015 with your current wife. Now, raising your kids after the experience that you had. So, all of us, the actions that we take are based off of our previous experiences and how we've handled them. And what we're teaching our kids are oftentimes based off of said previous experiences and how we handled those as well. But so I want to move into now your business. And we'll pull back, obviously, some experience that you've had in the past, and then add that into the business side of the house. But you mentioned that your dad was an entrepreneur, and your stepdad and your mom did multiple businesses together. So, would you say that, or do you think that like the entrepreneur side of you was always there from watching that, or was that something you definitely kind of picked up after leaving the military?
It's an interesting point because I never really looked at it like that. I think I always had that kind of entrepreneurial bug or spirit. I wanted things, and I knew I needed money to get them, and I wasn't willing to wait for like wages, paychecks. Right? I had jobs all through high school and college, but even in elementary school, I would go to like those 5 and dime type Woolworths or whatever stores and buy sleeves of chewing gum, bubble gum, like Bubblicious or whatever.
Yep.
And you get 5, 6, 7 packs of gum in one sleeve for $1.50 or something. And I would open them all up into the individual pieces, dump them all into a gallon baggie, and sell them at school for 25 cents a piece. So my margin was great.
Yes,
and then
clearly.
when I was in high school, I think it was sophomore year, I joined this. It was a people-to-people student ambassador program to Australia and New Zealand. And it was a summer trip. And to earn my way there, my family, very artistic family, and my mom big into crafts, and I like doing craft stuff too. So I made these grapevine. Go to the hobby shop, hobby store, and a craft store, get those the vine cones, like little mini Christmas trees and wreaths, and I would decorate them and sell them in the teachers' lounge for $7,500 a piece.
Wow.
And that's how I made it all the way to Australia. When I think back at my dad and my stepdad, my mom's businesses. When I was a kid, they just looked like every other office building, very boring, and I didn't understand what people did in there. They're just we are business people and we do business stuff.
Yeah.
As a kid, I didn't understand. But I recognize the difference between trading your time for money and just going out there and making it, by my own efforts.
Yeah.
And of course, it didn't really sink in until after the military. After my time in the military, it was more out of I don't know. There's a couple of things happened. I struck up this relationship with this beautiful woman, and then I got plunged into my second tragedy, the hearing loss. Those cracks in my skull. I contracted bacterial meningitis. I was right back in the hospital. My mom and my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, nursed me back to health. I lost all of my hearing, everything that was left from the bomb blast. So I was totally deaf and totally blind. And even though I'd have an opportunity, a chance to regain some of my hearing through the cochlear implant, it would take months before I'd even be switched on. So for over 6 months, it was like I was trapped in my body. And totally silent, totally dark, my whole world ending at my fingertips. And I didn't mention this, but when you're totally blind, you also can't reset your internal clock, your circadian rhythm to sunlight. So I have this sleeping disorder. And with the loss of my hearing, I also lost my vestibular balance, the ear balance. Yeah. So I'm going totally senseless. My sense of humor, sharper than ever. But at the time, I wasn't very humorous. I wasn't very fun to be around. But I was sitting there in my breakfast bars, feeling sorry for myself, thinking about the whole Hal Elrod and the 15-minute pity party, and I'm like, I gotta get back to work. I've done this before, and it's like God has the same soldier's sardonic humor, right? And I've started speaking for years and talking about this triumph over tragedy and success through struggle, not despite it. Yeah. And here he is coming up and tapping me on the shoulder and says, "Oh yeah, do it again. Put your money where the mouth is." The only thing I could do was, try to get physically fit again, fight back this loss of balance. And I took the trekking poles that I was taking into the mountains, And I would use that to do like this weird crab walk thing, daddy long legs thing, out to my mailbox and back. And then I got in the treadmill again, and I would just hit the quick start, like 5 miles an hour, or half a mile an hour. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
The first increment.
Yep.
And I would hold on for dear life. And then I would just hit the speed up button once or twice, beep, beep. And then I would walk a little bit faster. And within a year, I was running my first marathon back, wow. After the hearing loss. But in that time also, I decided I would take my focus off of me and, redirect it outward. If Thanksgiving was coming, it was right around the corner. And I'd tell you what, I love Thanksgiving. Like I mentioned, right before losing my sight, we celebrated Thanksgiving all together. And now I'd lost my hearing, and Thanksgiving was coming, and I was going to throw this huge feast. And I started cooking, desserts and, weeks in advance. And I started making all this fudge. And it was culinary, it was kitchen therapy. Yeah. And it was necessary for me, but it was something I could do to put smiles on other people's faces. If I could do that for them, then I could maybe, put a smile on my face. And it kind of snowballed. I made way too much fudge, even for the feast I was throwing. And Michaela started, I say, sneaking it out the front door. You don't have to be real stealthy around a blind deaf guy. She started giving it away, and then people started coming back and saying, "We'd like to buy more of this from you. Can we do that? We've got a birthday party or a baby shower or something." Capitalist in me said, "Well, of course you may." So we started this fudge company. But I'm passionate about food, and I love and I'm an endurance runner. I do these 100-milers. Just last year, I became the first blind and deaf person to complete the Badwater 135.
Nice.
And that means I burn a lot of calories. I love eating my own confections, but it's one of those, chicken, it's like the chicken versus the egg thing. Do we eat the calories because I like to run, or do I run because I eat the calories?
Yes.
But that, this business that we created, it afforded us to chase our other passions. And the other thing was that I was now by this time, medically retired from the military. But my major source of income, my only source of income, was this disability check. And I have a healthy distrust for our government. A very strong distrust for Congress. Right? And they love playing with service members and veterans benefits, when it comes to budget lines. And I did not want to be beholden to. I don't want them to decide my income. I wanted me to decide my income. So we started this business, and it was like, I don't know who said it. It was like your money makes money. So we wanted to buy assets, and then the money that money makes money. Yeah. So we would buy these assets, and these assets would buy assets. We got into real estate. We started investing in Ohio and North Carolina, and Tennessee, and here in Florida where we live. My wife became a real estate agent, and we have long-term and short-term rentals. We do the hospitality thing and Airbnb, and we fix up these unloved homes, give them some love. And one of the best parts about it is it's when you feed value into a system, and everybody wins. And that's what we're looking to do. We solve some problems. We make it so we're putting value into these communities, and everybody wins. people who are selling the property, people who buy them, the contractors, the neighbors, everybody wins.
For sure.
So,
and I love that the beginning of your entrepreneurial time was just a fix for a problem that you were experiencing, right? You needed that therapy, that time in the kitchen, just kind of working through, and like you rewound your time and went back to being a Navy cook for the Admiral, and just started cooking in the kitchen, and enjoying that. That turns into a business that then turns into multiple assets across multiple states, doing multiple different businesses, and I absolutely love that as a real estate guy myself. So I don't know how much we talked about it before, but I run an education company called Active Duty Passive Income that teaches military members and veterans how to invest in real estate, because I know the power of real estate and what it can do for you, because I too have a very healthy distrust of the government after many years of government service, and I want to share with as many military members, veterans, and their families how they can, not do what I did for the first 30 plus years of my life and just rely on that paycheck every 2 weeks to get you by, but to create a future for yourself that is well beyond what your VA disability or military retirement is going to give you. So as you've been building these assets and you're starting this business, what have you been sharing with your kids about it? I know before we started recording, you had mentioned that, and I haven't heard the recording of your kids answering the questions yet, but I do look forward to hearing it. What have you been talking to your kids about when it comes to business and investing? Because obviously you learned a lot, and I'm curious where you decided to how you dug into learning about investing and whatnot, but how do you talk to your kids about the business side and the investing side?
Well, the twins, being 5, I'm still trying to get them to understand what the different types of coins are.
Yeah.
And by the time they understand, they'll probably be useless anyways. But, but I talk to them about the value of things, the difference between price and value. And, right now is just what different things cost. This is equal to 5 of these quarters here. And, that just teaching them about money at this point. My son, who just became a teenager, it's the difference between value and price, and also the value of a dollar earned versus a dollar given. Yeah. And then, the value of things that you've purchased with something that, the money that you've created for yourself versus something that's just been handed to you. Yeah. And that's a tough thing nowadays, because, for my kids right now, I've got to create challenge for them. They don't really have challenge. He can earn money by doing certain tasks around the house, chores, that kind of thing. Also, I have a reading list separate from his school assigned reading. And if he reads or listens to the audiobook of these, from my reading list, and then creates and, writes an essay on it. So I know that he understands the lessons in there, then I'll pay him $50.
Wow, nice.
And he's completed one so far. Totally excited about it. And I gave him $25. He's like, "Where's the rest?" "Oh, I invested that for you."
Nice.
I think 50% of your income going to your own assets is more than fair right now. And while it's responsibility, it's reward and responsibility. And I've got to I feel like it's my responsibility kind of ease him into it. I can't just give him all the money and expect him to divide it into savings and investments and charitable giving. So I say, here's what we're going to do. You can decide within reason how much you want to save, how much you want to invest, how much you want to spend, and how much you want to give to charity. But I get veto power, or I have an extra voting, right here. So we'll discuss it. If you want to make changes, we can do that. But if you can. I also know that he has to have some incentive, some immediate incentive. So I let him have that spending money that he can just blow on stuff, right? Because he's still a kid, he's still learning, and all of us humans, adults included, it can't be all immediate gratification, and it can't all be that for the greater good payoff down the road. You got to have a balance.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's extremely wise on that front. So do you still do the EOD fudge, or is that more just is that still up and running? Are you still out there cooking that?
I'm sorry, what was that again? The
EOD fudge. Are you still in the kitchen making that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. EODfudge.com is still active online, and from time to time we still do the TikTok videos. Aaron Hale's cook without looking.
Nice.
I still love it. I've stepped out of the production, like the cooking myself, and we've hired others to make it. My recipes. The home kitchen is the TikTok studio and the R&D lab, and that's another way I get to. I get to spend time with the boys, just making cookies and cooking. We get together, we cook things, and just the last weekend we made ice cream, and the boys loved it.
Awesome.
So that's a way I can bond with the kids and have my fun as well.
So, do you pay your kids as part of as employees of your business as they help with the R&D and the cooking?
Sure do.
Good.
Yeah, I love that. The twins, the paid in pennies and nickels and stuff as their immediate gratification. But as the part of that long-term goals, we also set up 529 plans. We've got, they've each got Roth, and nice. we put them on the payroll.
Good.
Of course, you got to be careful there. You have to track their hours like any other payroll, right? It's part of being a good entrepreneur, business owner, is only paying the taxes that you have to, and not giving the government any tips. So
of course, to go back to that healthy mistrust of the government.
I'd rather give it to my kids' future than to the government, who seems to do nothing but burn piles of it.
Yes, absolutely, completely concur. And when you look at it from that front, like it's an expense on your business, and you can write your kids. Mind you, everybody listening, I am no tax expert, please, or legal expert. Please refer to your tax advisor and legal folks on how to actually structure these things. But paying your kids, setting up a contract for what is a reasonable fare in that area, at a reasonable fee in that area, paying your folks. It's an expense on your business. It's income for your kids. You can help them manage their income with the way that they need it to, such as an IRA or something along those lines. So that's awesome. I love that you're jumping on that. So how did you get into? So you obviously mentioned your business. It's earning you money. The fudge earned you money, and then you went and bought assets with it. How did you start to get the itch for the real estate side of it?
Where did that come from? It was actually, thank you, ADPI, from Military to Millionaire. I was, and I'd actually, we were starting to make some money with the fudge. Early on, we had somehow gotten these big corporate contracts, and we were cooking I was standing at the stove like 14 hours, 16
Wow.
hours a day, making batch after batch. And I realized I can't do this.
Yeah.
Just like I can't trade. I'm trading my time for money again, even though I own my own business. And I looked into investing. The first thing I thought of was stocks, right? It's kind of the traditional way of investing. You get some kind of ETF or something, mutual fund.
Yeah.
And I looked to Warren Buffett and value investing. I read some books on it and started learning how to do it. And one thing is that being blind, learning. It's one thing to learn how to read it like a financial statement, right? Mm-hmm. But reading spreadsheets and PDF for a blind guy is like playing Minesweeper on your computer. Oh man, it was a nightmare. So I also found out that reading these perspectives and just it was boring. Yeah. I still invest in stocks, and I have a percentage of my portfolio in those kind of assets. But I was listening to all these financial podcasts and reading books, and more investment recommendations started going towards real estate, and I started learning. I started listening to Bigger Pockets and ADPI, and so I started listening. Like that, this is more my lane, like take control of my future type thing. And instead of investing in a company where somebody else is driving, the bus, right? Some CEO, some board somewhere, and you just got to trust in the management. I can be the manager, and I can pick the investments, and I could do, I would own not just a paper share of something. Yeah, I would own the asset, and a tangible thing. And then I learned all about the tax benefits and the fact that banks want to partner with you. Yeah. There's all these things that I was learning about. Like this, why isn't everybody doing real estate? So, and of course, it's fun. I enjoy it more.
That's awesome. And I had no idea that the ADPI was one of those that you had not only knew about, but used our resource. That's phenomenal. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. The real estate world is, to me, one of the best ways. And of course, I'm a little biased because I run a company that teaches people how to do it, right? But it is one of the best ways to hold your value. Like you've got a cash flowing machine that brings you in money and holds your value. It's not a stock that goes up and down, like you were saying, where if the CEO does something wrong or whatever, then the whole thing could just implode on you, right? I mean, if I buy apartment buildings for the most part, so if I've got a 100-unit apartment building and 10 people move out, like, okay, I've still got 90 people that are paying the bills and making sure things are going. And obviously I want to fill those 10 doors up again real quickly. But, the ability to hold that value and hold the assets and just go to, I love real estate, obviously. So, as you started going into the real estate world and building out your company, you mentioned already that you were trading your time for money, even though you're the business owner. Now you've also mentioned that you have other people making your recipes. How did that transition go? What did you kind of do to put a transition in place for you to be able to step away from the day-to-day in the business and let somebody else do that portion of it? How did that transition work?
This is another one of those entrepreneur hurdles, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Is those challenges where you're doing everything and trusting others to take over for you, even in different aspects of the role. And first, you're wearing every hat.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, we were making the fudge. Michaela was cutting it and boxing it, and we were taking it out to the garage. I got the home, gym going on in my garage. It was so funny that we had the treadmill next to the stationary bike, next to the rower, next to the shrink wrap machine with the conveyor belt. But and then we were hand delivering these things to the post office to ship around the country.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to the point where we had we actually legally, by OSHA laws and all that, we were doing enough volume that we had to find a commercial kitchen. And we're thinking, okay, do we want to move into a building and do even more of that? Or did we want to hire an already existing commercial food kitchen, commercial food manufacturer? And I've got a fraternity brother who does just that. He was the guy. His company actually made MREs and does those like thermopack, squeezable, ranch, like dressings, that kind of stuff. Okay. Anyways, he connected us with a larger candy company that makes great candy, and they would do all of the labor, all of the operations for us, supplies, ordering. We would pick the boxes and the containers out, and then they would make the fudge, and they would put it in there, and then they would ship it out, and we would pay them for all of that. And like I said, then my kitchen was for making family dinners, developing the next recipe for the company, and every once in a while shooting a hilarious video where I'm burning myself or cutting myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that transition is extremely difficult to go from running it all and knowing how everything works to handing over the keys of the Ferrari to an unknown 16-year-old driver.
Well, the other thing to think about, though, is it's like asking for help.
Yeah.
So some reason we hate asking for help.
Yeah.
Right? But it's the same thing in owning a business where you're doing it yourself, and then you have too much to do that you can handle on your own. If you want to grow, you want to get better, right? You gotta find others, but it's not asking others for help. Same with like raising money, right? We're not asking to borrow people's money. You got to look at it from the other side. People love giving. People love helping. In fact, people need to help. And you're offering opportunity. Hey, there's opportunity to grow here. So I'm providing jobs with the business. When it comes to borrowing money, I'm providing an opportunity for investors who can't or won't or aren't willing, whatever the situation is, would prefer just to put their money to work. Yeah. I'm offering an opportunity for them to grow their money. And so with employees or vendors or whatever, I'm providing jobs. It's the same with the fudge company as it is with real estate and any other business. You're providing opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And it's there's a book, Who Not How, finding the people that are your who's to fix the problems that you have as well, like the things you don't love to do. And if it's getting exhausting for you and your ability, right now I'm in the process of finding somebody to help take over some of our, more technical, like managing our CRM and various different things like that for the company. Because right now, we've got a couple team members who are putting in all of this effort into the systems, and that is not the highest and best use of their time, nor is it something that they love doing. So if I could find somebody that does love to do those things and hire that person, then I am fulfilling their need to do those tasks. I'm giving them an opportunity to earn a good living and knock out a lot of the stuff that we need done for something that they love being able to do. It's like people managing their books. A lot of people don't like managing their books. So, but they do it because they think that, oh, well, I feel bad having somebody else do my, well, no, that person that loves doing books wants to do your books, and they want to be paid by you. So,
and you're taking yourself out of the bottleneck too.
Yeah.
All right. Think about me. Like, I'm already, I've got ADD, shiny object syndrome. I'm like the blindest guy with shiny object syndrome. But also, I told you before we started recording how I'm blind. I'm deaf. I've got one cochlear implant as my input, and that's 101. I mean, technology is amazing. There's 101 ways I can screw something up, and no matter how good I get at a particular operation, especially on the computer, somebody with eyesight is going to be 10 times faster. So I shouldn't be doing everything.
Yeah.
And I should be sharing the opportunity so we can all grow and earn and, and reach all of our individual and collective goals faster.
Yeah, and it's easy for somebody that is listening or watching to just go, oh yeah, I mean that's obvious when a person is blind, that it's easier to just get somebody that can look at the computer to be able to do that faster. But that same person may be thinking to themselves, yeah, but I don't, I still need to do these things. But like the physical skills or even the mental skills that we have are all different for every person. So if you can find out what you are really good at and just focus on what you're really good at and hire somebody else who is really good at the things you really suck at, like it's harder sometimes to label those things, or I would imagine anyways, through this conversation, it's harder to label those things, obviously, than labeling, well, somebody can actually see a computer and I can't. But somebody else has skills that you don't. Hire the person that has those skills so you could focus on your core abilities that make a huge difference in your company. So I love that you are making that or that you have already made that growth and sharing that.
Sometimes your superpower might just be the one who connects all the dots. Right? Yeah. You're the one who puts the team together and leads the team.
And that's a huge superpower.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah. Well, I think that, Aaron, it was absolutely awesome to chat with you. I really hope that our technical problems in the middle did not screw up this recording, but I guess if it did, I'll have to bring you back on again, shucks, and talk more about, business and dad stuff. But if people wanted to, you already mentioned, is it eodfudge.com? If people wanted to reach out to you or buy your fudge or learn more about your real estate, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Well, you can find me on my own podcast, Point of Impact, with Aaron Hale. And it's Aaron Hale Podcast at gmail.com. And of course, eodfudge.com. And I'm on all the social media, so you can just reach out. If the technical issues aren't trouble, I'm at your service. Also, would love to talk to you more about anytime about real estate, or maybe even jumping on one of Eric's excursions.
Yes. He's actually
appreciated.
Eric is, I think, getting ready to, if I remember correctly, do another hike for Veterans Community Project to raise more money for homeless veterans, which we over at ADPI, we partnered with Veterans Community Project to get more money over there to build more tiny houses to get veterans off the street. So if that's the case, I'll have him reach out to you and see if it might be a time for you to have another excursion with those hiking poles you talked about.
Yeah. Now they can need another excuse to get outside, but that's a really good one.
For sure. Well, Aaron, thank you again so very much for jumping on. I greatly appreciate it. It was awesome to chat with you. I am positive that your kids are going to be better off because of your experiences. I know that people that are interacting with you on a daily basis are better off because you have such an amazing positive outlook, despite the massive amounts of trials you've dealt with. So thank you very much for shining a bright light in a very dark world, especially in the veteran space where we lose way too many veterans. So I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for inspiring folks and jumping on the podcast with me. I can't wait to see the video of your kids talking about what you do. And I also can't wait to see your kids grow up and turn into entrepreneurs themselves, perhaps. And I'm going to have to go find some of those videos where the kids are cooking with you. So, but thank you again very much for jumping on, Aaron.
Appreciate it, Adam. Thank you.
And to everybody out there, please like, subscribe, do all of those things you're supposed to do. Reach out to Aaron, order some fudge, listen to his podcast. Can't wait for this one to come out. But thank you, everybody, and we'll see you on the next show.